Hey guys, hope you're all good. This video is just a quick follow-up to Duncan's excellent deep dive into Rocky's real identity. Big shout out to him, and also to his anonymous source who helped bring key information forward behind the scenes. Some really sharp investigating there. What I'm doing here is just giving you a behind-the-scenes look at the tools we've used to compare Rocky's face with known images of Steven Rocas. Now don't worry, this isn't going to get too technical. I'm going to break it down nice and easy. You don't need any kind of specialist knowledge to follow along. As you watch this, you'll see me uploading different photos into the system. We're going to loop the video so you can see it in action again and again. Each time I'm testing different face pairs and showing the results from the software we're using. So here's the core idea. Modern face recognition doesn't compare photos like a human would. Instead, it turns each face into something called a vector. Think of a vector like a unique digital fingerprint made up of numbers. A long list that represents the main features of someone's face. When two photos are of the same person, their vectors are really similar. And if they're of different people, those numbers start to look very different. Now the clever part is how we compare those vectors. We use something called cosine similarity. Don't let the name put you off. It just tells us how close the two face vectors are in terms of the direction they're pointing. If they point in exactly the same direction, the score is 1. That's a perfect match. If they're completely different, the score drops closer to 0. A negative one would mean they're pointing in opposite directions, but that's almost never something we see with real faces. Watch closely. When we compare the exact same photo, the score we get is 1, which makes sense because it's a perfect match. But here's something really interesting. When we compare two different photos of Rocky, the score comes out at around 0.6. That tells us the system doesn't think they're identical, but it still sees enough similarity to consider them a possible match. And for context, a score like 0.6 would usually be enough to unlock a phone with Face ID or other biometric systems. It's a strong similarity, just not total certainty. Now you might be asking, what score is high enough to say, yes, this is the same person? Great question. We could guess and say 0.5, but through loads of testing with huge face datasets, researchers have found that the best threshold is actually around 0.42. That means if two face vectors score higher than 0.42, we lean towards saying they're the same person. If it's lower, they're probably different people. But that 0.42 threshold isn't fixed in stone. We can change it depending on what we're trying to achieve. For example, if we're unlocking a phone with our face, we'd probably want a much higher threshold, like 0.6, because we'd rather it not unlock than let the wrong person in. On the flip side, if we're just trying to find every possible photo of someone in a big archive, we might lower the threshold a bit to make sure we don't miss anything, even if we get a few false matches. That flexibility is really useful, and it means that face recognition can be adapted depending on what kind of mistake we're more willing to accept, missing a real match or accidentally including a wrong one. So while this video plays on loop, just keep an eye on the uploads and the similarity scores being shown. You'll see that when we run Rocky's face against photos of Steven Rocas, the system gives us a number. That number tells us how likely it is that they're the same person, and it's based on real, mathematical evidence, not just guesswork. What's really telling is that when we compare different photos of Rocky to each other, the score comes out around 0.6, which, as we said earlier, is strong enough to unlock a phone, but not identical. But when we compare Rocky's photos to known images of Steven Rocas, we consistently get scores above 0.6, while comparisons with other individuals stay clearly below that mark. And that matters. Despite the fact that the photos of Rocas are older, sometimes years older, the system still sees enough core similarity in the structure of the face to flag a likely match. Age-related changes, lighting, angles, they don't throw it off. That tells us the facial features have remained similar enough over time that the model sees Rocky and Rocas as very likely the same person. We're using a face recognition model called ArcFace, which is one of the most reliable out there. The vectors it generates are consistent, and the cosine similarity it gives us has been tested against thousands of image pairs in real-world conditions. So yeah, it's not magic, it's math. And once you understand how that number works, it becomes a really powerful tool for digging into questions like this. If you haven't already watched Duncan's full breakdown, go check it out. It's brilliant. This is just the technical companion to show you exactly how we backed up the visual side of the investigation. And if you've got any questions about how the tool works, or you want us to run more image comparisons, just let me know. I'm more than happy to show you more. Thanks for watching, and as always, I look forward to your thoughts in the comments below.